Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Prime Gaming. If any of the games in that catalog piques your interest, then make sure that you link up your Prime account over to your Twitch. That way you can get all of those great free games because you've only got a few days left until those are gone. But don't worry, there's going to be a whole new arsenal of games that are going to be available to you every single month. With Prime Gaming, you can get free games, free content for games you're already playing, as well as with a Prime membership, get free shipping, music, movies, and more available to you. So if you don't have a Prime membership, first off, go ahead and grab one of those, and then link that over to your Twitch to get Prime Gaming. Thank you so much to Prime for being the sponsor of Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. My name is J-Mac. I got Mifflin joining me on the desk. We get ready to jump into our second set of the day. After our first set, no more undefeated teams in the SPL. Now that the Leviathans have dethroned both of them in 2 consecutive days, we're going to move on now to the Oni Warriors and the Valhalla Valkyries.
Maybe no more undefeateds, but we got one more only defeated.
True.
So if we're going to be the week of trend breaking, the Valkyries are going to have to take a dub today.
Yeah, the Valkyries are going to have to find a big win over the Oni Warriors if they want to be the only team, or if they want to now join the teams of having no more zeros in any of their columns out there. The Valkyries have been able to find game wins so far, but they have been unable to convert those into set wins. Not only that, we'll have the Solar Scarabs and the Jade Dragons, our third and final set that will come up immediately after that. And taking a look at the standings, now you can see the Leviathans, they were sitting down in that 6th seed coming into this weekend, but now with 2 big wins under their belt, they move up to the 4th seed, and they also put a 1 in the loss column for both the Kings and the Bolts.
The Oni Warriors hot on their heels, though, could tie up if they could take out the Valhalla Valkyries, and I think most people would say this is an expected win, right? Like when you're looking at your channel points and you're like, I want more of them. This is typically the type of game you would bet on. Low returns. I'd be betting on it, but I lost mine all in like the last game, so.
Oh, you
actually
all of them. I didn't know you actually put your channel points in that last one.
I got 0 now.
That's unfortunate for you. Maybe for the Valkyries fans at home, maybe they can hope that the Valkyries can find a win out in this game against the Oni Warriors. That way they can get themselves some extra channel points and maybe even help get those Valkyries some wins in their column. And they're going to need it up against the Oni Warriors, specifically over in that Soul Lane matchup, Nika versus Aquarius for the side of the Valkyries. Aquarius has been one of those players who's very consistent in that solo lane. He's been able to step up. He's even making some change-ups to his god pool, going away from the Guardians and the Warriors. We were seeing some assassin play come out of him last week.
In a team that is full of inconsistency, I think Aquarius finds himself as the only constant for this team. He's been impressed me, I think, every single week. Even when his team is losing, for the most part, Aqua's holding his own. That's not to say that he hasn't had some bad games, but I think they are much fewer and farther between when surrounded by a team that is full of ups and downs. I saw a post on the SMITE Pro subreddit recently where someone had hypothesized or posited that the Valkyries are a team that have got really high highs and really low lows, and they're never on the same page. One day Benny Q's popping off, but Aqua's having a bad day. Maybe one day Kirmi's really stepping up, and Wowie's having a good time, but Gamma and Benny are struggling. So when the Valhalla Valkyries, I'm not certain that we've seen it just yet, but when they are all firing on all cylinders, I think that this is a team that can compete, especially when rallied around Aquarius. But the concern that I had for the Valkyries that I had brought up during their last set is lack of identity. What is their win condition? For the most part, I think people would argue early game pressure. They're very reminiscent of the Solar Scarabs earlier in their careers. But even then, they're not going for that strategy of play all the time. They're not really honing in on that. Sometimes it's like late game scaling. Sometimes it's mid game objective pressure. Sometimes it is that early game presence. I want to see that continually. Every time I watch them play now, I'm waiting for them to find something that works and continue to build on it.
And I think maybe some of the sentiments and echoes can be said here of Nika on the solo lane for the Oni Warriors as well.
It's a beast.
He is a player that is probably the most consistent across the board for his team, has been even since Season 8 and coming up until here. Has been a hard carry at times. Other times has just been that pillar of making sure to get the team to rally around him, make sure that they can find themselves to being able to get to some of these late game fights. The Warriors as a whole have stepped up a lot this year. There were a lot of concerns of them coming from the SPL qualifiers, a bit of a struggle to them. Phase number 1, it was an explosive performance out of them. Phase number 2, fairly similar so far as they've been able to find wins up against the Tartarus Titans, but have also had struggling matchups against teams like the Scarabs.
You know, I think your point of Nika being that air quotes hard carry holds true in the phases of past, in the years of past, Season 7, Season 8. Sure, Nika was like the shining ray of hope for this team. And he has not gotten worse at all. He has stayed consistent. the rest of the team has now stepped up around him. Nika's still playing well. Cuvo Fred's playing some of his best Smite in years. Dardes is dominating on his weird eclectic picks. Vote has found a meta that really suits his style. And Neilma, being that consistent shot caller, still exists for the Oni Warriors. So you're right in saying that Nika, a phenomenal player, will sometimes just dominate a game himself. But I think it is a bygone age of, hey, it's the Nika carry project, right? The Oni Warriors are a threat, and they deserve respect as a team.
Yeah, this is definitely a team that has stepped up a lot. I mean, in the last few matchups that we've seen with the Oni Warriors, Cuvo and Dardes specifically, this dodgy Morgan combo that these guys love to have been running has really been a menace against a lot of their opposition. We had a chance to sit down with Cuvo Fred of the Oni Warriors and talk to him a little bit about his matchup.
I think my performance has generally been good this phase. It's still kind of early into the phase. We played 4 games so far. I think I've done both some good stuff and I also done some bad stuff along the way for sure, but that's a part of the process. I mean, I would say more this season, I'm very impressed. Like all my teammates are great guys. I didn't really get to know them that much last year because I was in Denmark. But now that we have come together, I really enjoy them all outside of the game, and inside of the game they're all very good. Especially me and Dardes, I think we have very good synergy. We talk about the game and we think about the game very similarly, so I really enjoy Dardes for sure. I really like the Valks. I hang out with Benny a lot outside of the game, so yeah, I think they have had a rough look so far this season, but that's to be expected when you go from SCC to SPL. It's a different level of gameplay that you have to play into, and I think sometimes we see they have the potential to play up and play some good Smite. Recently they looked a little bit in the slump, but I can see them come out and bring some good Smite for sure. What do you think about when I think about the Valkyries team? I think Kermi and Benny, 2v2 in mid, sometimes looks hot, sometimes look cold. When they look hot, they usually tend to have good games. When they look cold, not so much. Their dual lane, I'm not really sure how much I mean, I respect them obviously, but I'm not sure how high their skill ceiling is. I mean, you can never sleep on anyone, so obviously we respect every players. But yeah, I'm not too scared of Valks. I'm not too scared of any team. I think if we play better on the day, we can beat any team, so yeah.
A lot of remarks from Cuvo Fred there talking about, you know, the hots and colds of the team in the mid 2v2. That's something that you were going on about, talking about maybe some of the struggles of the dual lane, which is something that we as the casters have echoed a lot on the desk, in the cast specifically. If Gamma and WoW are able to step up and have a good game, then the Valkyries in general have typically been able to find some success in their matchups there. But I think looking at the direct matchup between Cuvo and Kirmi, they haven't been sharing a lot of the same gods more than anything else. I know that the meta has dictated itself around having Nemesis, having Osiris, those kinds of gods in there, but these guys played 2 pretty different styles.
Yeah, I mean, both very capable of playing the Osirises and the Nemesises, right? But when you think of Kirmi, my mind goes to Vamana and Shiva and those early game styles of picks, the Erlong Shen as well. When I think of Cuvo Fred, I mean, it's like he's like the Nemesis guy. He's been the Nemesis guy for so long. It's hard to think of anything else when you are evaluating his jungle god pool. That's not to say that he isn't incredibly capable of playing every single pick. So I'm excited to see how this match rounds out. I do want to give some credit over to Cuvo, though, man. He is a consummate professional, right? Like, even you could tell there was like a slight pause. Like, what do I think of the dual lane? So the Valks are a pretty good team. So just happy to hear. You know, you got nothing nice to say. Don't say anything at all.
And picks and bans for game number 1 between the Oni Warriors and the Valhalla Valkyries kicks off, and the first bans that come out are a couple of those jungle bans you just talked about. The Erlong Shen up against Kirmi to make sure he doesn't have something comfortable there. The Valkyries will take away the Osiris and a Raven, which has seen some success in the jungle. Cuvo used to play that god a lot back when it was primarily a jungler, but we've been seeing the rise of this Raven solo. It kind of got brushed over in our previous set. None of the teams really focusing over towards it, but if I know Nika, and this is the guy who brought Bastet solo in at the beginning of the year, he's probably hungry to get some more assassins in that lane.
Yeah, I wonder. Nika's kind of strayed away from like the Kleena solos. He's getting back more in line with just like the standard meta selection. So excited to see which version of Nika we're going to get from the Oni Warriors today. Whether or not they decide to play through him, I think is going to be indicative of his pick. If he's playing things like King Arthur or just like a standard warrior, you're probably thinking, okay, the Warriors want to play in the mid 3v3, or maybe they're playing around the dual lane. If we are seeing the Bastets, the Kleenas, then we're going to see a lot more action over towards the solo. But with Aqua very capable of playing just the highly survivable picks, like going towards things like the Guardians or even at times things like Nike, might dissuade Nika from going towards a hyper carry. You really want to be able to establish a lead in that lane, and it's so hard to do it against some of those tankier, more survivable picks.
The Oni Warriors actually banning Yemoja in the first pick slot, meaning that Neilma himself does not want to prioritize that as a first pick, and then obviously does not want to give that over to the Valkyries to have a second pick. But the Valkyries will take away one of the pieces of the near undefeated puzzle that has been established by the Oni Warriors. That Morgan Dodgy combo has been so potent for them. I believe 3-1 in the last 4 games that they've ran that one. So they're going to take the Morgan away. Dodgy's still notably open, but at least for now, the Oni Warriors are going to grab that global presence into Chernobog, who's become the top hunter for teams to pick up.
And has so much flex potential. Seen him in solo, mid, and ADC. Has had a lot of success in all roles. Generally, when you're bringing up 3, it's like varying degrees of success. No, Chernobog just kind of works. He just has really good pressure, really good global presence. So the Oni Warriors only showing that they have a Chernobog. That's the only thing you're getting from this selection in the first slot. Something we don't see over often, but has become increasingly less rare, is this Dodgy first pick. The Valks taking it so early are going to give the Oni Warriors opportunities to just go ahead and draft CC immunity inherent to their selections. Things that can deal with the Palau on their own, even foregoing beads. But in getting Dodgy this early, the Valks can now start strategizing the composition around it, right? Generally, if you're picking up Dodgy in like 4th or 5th, it's because, oh, it's still open and it kind of looks good here. Maybe I get lucky. But now you can say, hey, we need some AoE CC. We need something that can burn these beads, or something that can make use of burnt beads on their own. If you want Dodgy to be the primary burner, then maybe something like a Fenrir or something that could just really get active. Like, I really like the Dodgy Ares combo, but that's not necessarily available anymore with Khepri locked in. But the analysis stands. Get something that can either facilitate Dodgy or make use of the burnt beads. We've seen this struggle a whole lot in the SPL, where it just feels like Dodgy can't do anything because the other team just always has their beads.
And then Gamma going to be getting the Khepri, so will allow Kieran to be able to maybe make some of these more aggressive dives in the early and the late stages. Always have that Scarab's Blessing as a fallback if need be. On the opposite side, though, the Oni Warriors do draft Achilles, likely slated over towards the soul lane for Nika. That'll be the first time that we see him on that, at least in a while. It's been quite some time since we've seen him pilot that god. And Freya over for Vote, I would assume, as we've seen him on that god a couple of times. The last 2 performances we saw him, 2-2-4 and 2-3-1 on that god. So staying fairly consistent at the least. And I mean, talking with Zapman, talking with all the other hunters, it just seems that buff to Freya has been such a significant boost to her laning phase.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't played Smite in a little while, you come back in, viewing competitive, Freya used to be, hey, we got to 30 minutes, so we won. And then eventually was, hey, all right, well, her mid game's not so bad. Nowadays, Freya is, oh, she's good in the early, she's good in the mid, and she's really good in the late still. So just a very strong selection. Generally, the answer to Freya is a lot of pressure onto her. So you maybe have this Dodgy rotate over, try and force out those Valkyrie discretions, try and force out those relics early on, and facilitate your laner. Early aggression, also a pretty good option, but with Jingwei locked in, it's not exactly the highest pressure hunter selection from the Valkyries. More so just a, hey, I'm really not trying to get soloed over here. I'm gonna head back to base if I get poked, and then I'll fly back in. You're not sacrificing much farm. I think I would have preferred to see the Valkyries just really all in on that duo. And anytime you've got a Frey on the other side, it is just so worth your while to put the aggression there.
The Valkyries, with their first ban in the second phase, will take Baron Samedi off, who's kind of fallen by the wayside in popularity. Coming into Masters and in the first week of the new phase, Baron was like the hottest god on the market. Everybody was picking him up as quickly as they could. First round picks, even coupling that with things like Yemoja. But now he's making his way through these first rounds, making it second phase every so often. And then a god who has also been rising in popularity and been rising in the ban and pick priority has been this Poseidon. That's gotten taken away by the Oni Warriors. And the Yu Huang, which might be maybe a little surprising to me, because when you're talking about gods that can deal with Dodgy's Palau on their own without use of beads, Yu Huang, to me, was the perfect opportunity for the Oni Warriors to maybe grab.
Maybe, but with Freya locked in, you can either assume that she's going mid or she's going duo, and that would leave Chernobog there. Pretty unlikely that you want Chernobog over in the soul lane. I mean, Nika capable of playing it, I'm sure, but generally with this style of composition, you want to build an ironclad front line. Achilles could be that Nika selection, or it could be headed for the jungle. Cuvo Freds played that once or twice during his career. So hard to say. I think the Oni Warrior is right to ban out the Yu Huang. I think that does indicate to me that this mid lane has already been selected. And if I had to guess, probably the Chernobog, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. I prefer Chernobog in a side lane because then you can make better usage of that global presence. That's not to say that he can't like still teleport to a side lane, but you're kind of close to everything, and most of the fighting's already happening in that mid 3v3. So more often than not, we're going to see Chernobog kind of use that ultimate, probably as like a secondary Aegis.
And if we want to talk about maybe, I was talking about gods like Baron who are so popular, a month ago and are starting to lose some favor. How about a god that's really risen up in just like the last week or so of play? Artio has brought her way back into the meta, and it seems that a lot of these solo laners are running it with that Conduit Gem. Is it really just the buff to that one item that's given her so much presence in that solo lane?
Conduit Gem go dummy, bro. I mean, that's all I can say, man. I mean, when you're Artio, you might as well call Conduit Gem like you're Blicky, because that thing just goes crazy. You're clearing out every single wave. You've got great upgrade options. The main weakness of Artio in like 9.4 and 9.3 when she had really fallen off was, hey, I can't clear waves and there's nothing I can build to change that. I'm just kind of stuck here not clearing my waves and not getting my blue buff. Conduit Gem, hey, I'm clearing my waves and I'm getting the most of my blue buff. So, and then your late game has always been strong on Artio. That frontline presence as well as in combat healing, so valuable. So no surprise to me that with the buff to Conduit Gem, Artio's made her way back.
We see a Sylvanas and a Sobek as the final picks for the Oni Warriors. So this Achilles that I initially thought maybe going over towards Nika in the solo lane looks like it may just be going over to Cuvo Fred instead. And for the Valkyries, probably one of the more standard picks that they can go for is going to be this Merlin Ford Benny-Q's played it a couple of times in the last 6 alongside Poseidon's and a Ra, and then obviously the one Terra. We don't talk about that one nearly as much. It didn't perform up to the same scuff. But this is a pick that Benny-Q, when it comes to, think about Benny-Q, he is a wild player when it comes to his picks. When you think of a standard matron to play, this is typically the one that I immediately go to.
Yeah, it's one that suited him very well. I mean, I also think of the Anubis, but that's less so in that standard column, probably why you don't bring it up. But I really like this Merlin into the Oni Warriors composition. Merlin, I consider to be one of the best base defenders. If you're ever on a Phoenix Siege defense, Merlin's like one of the best to do it. And also, if you're ever on the retreat, Merlin is so good at just throwing that damage behind him. Hey, I dropped ice on my feet. Walk through it. Good luck. Hey, you're running at me? Arcane Stance, Whirlpool of Galaxies, or whatever the actual canon of it is. And it's so good to stop that aggressive styling. And when you look at this Oni Warriors draft, it's a whole lot of W key. Chernobog gonna spawn up those shadows, have these ADCs walking you down. Freya, when she gets her hastened, just W keying you. Achilles, just W keying you. So I think that Merlin really fits this style for the Valhalla Valkyries, counters out a lot of what the Oni Warriors are bringing, and also gives you some win conditions. Now you can really start talking about objective burn. Daji brings a whole lot through the jungle. Jingwei, once she gets her crit chance, and Merlin in the fire stance or even the ice stance really can shred these objectives. So if the Valkyries find any sort of advantage in either side lane, maybe you're looking at a Pyro, maybe you're looking at a Gold.
And something that we talked about in the last set with the Leviathans, and then I'll bring it back up into this set, is we do have this Daji, god who's great at being able to burn some of those beads away with the Pal Lao, but it's always a matter of, do you have the team around it to be able to get some of those other beads? Do you have gods that can allow Daji to not have to be the one to burn those beads? Do you think that the Valkyries have a composition that can facilitate that a bit?
You've asked me a hard question, because now I have to answer a hard truth, and I just don't think so, right? Like, Artio can burn beads if you're ahead. Blink stun, okay, got him. But that's if you're ahead. Khepri can do it, but if you're behind on Khepri, Abduct means you can't use Scarab's Blessing while you're channeling it. You might have to cancel it early. And it's generally single target. Merlin's not really ever burning beads. You don't often see people saying, oh no, Ice Storm, let me beads. Oh no, Arcane Stance, let me beads. No, that's not how it works. And Jingwei doesn't do it very much either. So I think that the beads burning potential of this Valkyries composition is completely dependent on game state. If they have a lead and they are each individually threatening, then you could start talking about Daji just getting these Pal-Laos ringing true every single time. Getting to that point with this draft, gonna be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I mean, when you got a Jingwei who's much more slanted towards the late game, Merlin maybe a little bit slower to go over in the mid lane, the Valhalla Valkyries are gonna need every bit of farm that they can get, everything that they can find to try and get an early lead. Can the Valhalla Valkyries find one against the Oni Warriors, or can the Oni Warriors take game number 1? We'll throw it over to Dave and Trelly to find out.
We've already lost 2 undefeated teams this weekend. Will the Valkyries get their first win of the phase? Or will the Oni Warriors knock them down one more time? Remains to be seen. But Oni Warriors at least getting creative, Trelly, going into game number 1 against the Valhalla Valkyries. They will put Nilma on a unique support pick, and the Sylvanas. Cuvo Fred playing the Achilles jungle. That's not something I've seen in a little while. And then Nika, of course, on Sobek solo, which may end up being the least weird pick that the Oni Warriors have gone for.
Yeah, when I was casting with J-Mac the other day and we saw the Artio v Sobek lane, I coined it one of, if not the most boring lanes in solo you can really have. You're just going to be seeing a lot of ability spam, no real kill opportunity.
Let's talk about it now so we don't have to for 20 minutes.
Okay, well, you're going to see a lot of this. And then maybe Aqua he gets scared. He might get plucked, and he'll put the cripple field down. And then Nika will knock him up, and then maybe he'll pluck him. But besides that, I don't think we're going to see too much action. I will say Nika does not have beats, so maybe some aggression as Gamma will take a little bit of poke here. And has to use the beats very early on. This is what we're talking about. I mean, first of all, a great pull by Neil, but also the slow autos from Vote. Freya's early game is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, nothing horrible like it maybe used to be. Nika does not have beads, you're right, but at level 5, that lurking in the waters will help immensely as far as getting out of what the desk admittedly was a bit nervous about. Gamma's going to take more poke here, my goodness. But the desk was worried about the setup around the powerhouse for Kirmi.
Yeah.
Feels like Kirmi has been the do-it-all style jungler for this Valkyries team. And the desk expressed concern that it might literally be do-it-all as far as engage, initiation, CC goes for the Valkyries this game.
Yeah, and Nika just has the block for the CC immunity as well, so just can
Yeah,
immune
right,
the
of course,
power so
yeah.
many different ways. No fear of that ability, even if the ult's down. Nika has plenty of opportunity. You can just pluck a minion and say, I'm good, I'm not going to be worried about that one. So Kirby's got his work cut out for him. I just have to highlight the fact that there could be a kill opportunity there if, you know, some over-aggression comes through, maybe some abilities being spent, or he could be out of mana.
But as far as game state goes, or do you agree with the thought, not game state, team fight, late game, do you agree with the sentiment of the desk that it just feels CC light for the Valks, and you're hoping that the state of the game gives Gamma the ability to be aggressive and burn beads? You hope that the state of the game allows Aquarius to be more active and find some stuns? Or do you think there are opportunities outside of simply being ahead?
My issue is just how late game this comp is. You know, the Jingwei takes a while to get online. You really need some crit to be able to start pumping out some decent damage. Merlin is another mage that doesn't have a great time in the early. Can clear the wave, but that's about it. You have to use a few rotations of abilities to do so, and it just takes a long time before you're able to do those late game Merlin numbers. And you're up against a Sylvanas who's going to be consistently healing the squad. So it's going to take a bit, and I do fear what Myth was alluding to, that I think Kirby's going to have his work cut out for him trying to find good targets to pull.
Watch out, because Kirmi's on the left side of the map. A whoop from Vote slows down some initiation. I think Vote will be okay. He will. Kirmi at level 4, and the Warriors lucky for that fact. Otherwise, you're looking certainly an initiation. Kivo Fred, Achilles Jungle, makes his way to the left side of the map. Blinks in, stuns onto Gamma. Look for the pull, look for the whoop. All of it can connect for first blood, and Gamma goes down. Kivo Fred hits Pater with the first gank of the game. And a couple of knockups for show in the end, but a good pull from Numa. Won't add another kill, just some flash.
I thought that pull would have been enough, because Cubo ticked over to level 5, got access to Fatal Strike. That execute threshold was getting smaller and smaller by the second. Well, actually, it didn't change at all. The threshold doesn't change. His HP was getting closer to the threshold by the second, and not going to be the option. Yeah, Kirby had the thought process of maybe I can find a gank, Vote, and Neil just back up. And Cubo's like, wait, if you're backing up, that means they're chasing you. So now I have the opportunity to find a gank. They got Gamma's beats earlier on, and the Capri falls down for first blood. So already a solid bounty on Cubo's head to be able to get that one. And he's going to use that influence throughout the map. Interestingly enough, it looks like he is going for that Golden Blade start, so should be clearing the map just much faster than Kirby.
Do you think that can... Are you? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's so hard to predict with Cubo Fred and the junglers and how innovative they can be. Do you think is there value in like a full auto attack build from Kivo, or is it like the Horus style of build where Golden Blade just gives you enough value early and then you go into something a bit more standard for your character after the fact? Or would you be surprised if you saw something like Golden Blade and stone cutting, something like that down the build tree?
Yeah, I could certainly see it. I also think it's not the best option. So Cubo, with his armor off and with a Golden Blade and a speed buff, is just going to be zooming. That's really all the movement speed and help with clear you'll need. I wouldn't be surprised if we just saw him go right into a hi-rez or something to start chunking as much as possible, because you already get enough of that help with clear with the Golden Blade. But there is certainly a world where Cubo says, hey, I'm just going to try a full auto attack build. I'm not too worried about the the opposition being able to stop me. I'm so fast and things like that. So there's a world where I could see it, but I'd prefer to see just the full burst. You're blinking in, get a big stun and a hi-rez proc after the fact, and you're just chunking with these Achilles abilities.
Yeah, not something you get to see that often is the full damage Achilles. Normally something a bit more bruisery. I would agree with you there, and it does look like that's what Cuvo Fred is agreeing with. Get the Golden Blade to help facilitate the clear early on in the game, and then a bit more ability burst later on. So Vote will remain in this laning phase about 1 level ahead of Wowie, half of the HP though, with no pots remaining, but Wowie doesn't either. You figure this should be a pretty safe lane, Trelly, between a Jingwei and a Freya who's got the Whoop and a Valkyrie's Discretion. Looks like we're going to be fighting again on the left side of the map. Neil does not have beads, does have Shell, but has taken next to no damage on the pull-in from the powwow. And this is just good old-fashioned pressure on the purple buff. Has forced a response from the Valkyries, and the response is to leave.
Yeah, there's no fight potential at all at this purple buff with the powwow down. And man, I've gone on record to say a few times how much I hate this Jingwei build, but it just keeps coming back. The Ichival and the Death Toll, you're already such a late-game hunter. You're delaying crits so much. You get to box with Freya decently well, but you're just never gonna be able to out-trade. So I'm gonna harp up on it every chance I get. When I see the Ichival, that just means you're gonna be delaying your crits so much. Sure, you get some auto attacks, but everything else you're doing is hitting so slow, and your late game is just delayed. I guess the Valkyries are putting a lot of stock in their late game with the Merlin and the Jingwei. If they do get online, they will certainly be rewarded. But given the map state thus far, the Oni Warriors are not trying to let that happen.
Benny Q uses the flicker and the beads. Fatal strike there. Cuvo Fred blink. Hello and goodbye. As the fatal strike used to disengage and the dash. Cuvo plays it perfectly. And the Oni Warriors snag a kill in mid. Kirmi could be second here. Looks like Kirmi will be fine. Gam, I don't think enough damage to rip through that health bar. Remember back to the earlier Valkyrie set this weekend and how when you looked up at the scoreboard randomly like 10 minutes in, the Valks were just like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 gold behind. That's what they have to avoid that today. Just the passive neutral farm objectives just being bled away from them. Yes, the Warriors being more proactive as far as kills right now. Cuvo Fred has made great use of this Achilles. But avoiding just falling passively thousands of gold behind has got to be priority 1 for the Valks.
Yeah, I would say so. Put it on the checklist and say, hey, step 1, let's not get behind. Step 2, stop giving up these easy ganks. And honestly, the first blood, I think, it was at no fault of the Valks. They thought they had a kill opportunity on the Vote. Kirmi couldn't get there in time, and because they chased so far up, just a great opportunity for Cuvo. That time around, Benny Q going for mid camps, doesn't realize Cuvo's there, gets the beads forced, and now we might see even more aggression over here.
I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any fear from the Oni Warriors, as it looks like Cuvo's here. And Darkness is in base and is now running all his way to the tower, but he could fly in at any moment.
That's true. It's continued purple buff pressure. And finally, the Valkyries will get one of their purple buffs, but it's split 3 ways. Wowie just a moment ago was 2 levels behind Vote. Needed that just for any extra XP that not only you're denying from Vote, but you're giving to Wowie. Helps out with this laning phase. Because if the Freya was already hitting pretty effectively, then maybe we will have to talk about the solo lane here, Trelly, as Aquarius is jumped at. Kirmi is being melted through. At some point, I just take the pull here. I don't really care, except it allows Kirmi to disengage.
Cuvo's coming.
Cuvo does not have blink for 10 seconds. Nika's going to tank up the tower. Cuvo Fred. Easy as you like, and Kirmi down for the first time this game. Nika's low, but Aquarius has the ability to fight this out. Yes, he does, but Nika's going to hang out by the wayside. Minion wave, be careful. Heals up, and Cuvo Fred and Dardes will rally around the solo laner, execute, and Cuvo Fred on a roll. 3 kills for the Oni Warriors jungler.
Yeah, but it looks like the Valks will be able to steal away that red buff. In comes Dardes to make Gamma pay. Gets that Scarab's Blessing out very early on, but they're going to stall it out.
Scarab's Blessing is going to time out. Knock up from Wowie, but not enough. Vote on the board for the first time. And now the Freya also has a kill here in this game. That's a pluck under tower from Nika, but Wowie with a sliver of HP will live. At least a red buff steal going to the Valks. But Trelly, look where we are. We're at 10 minutes. And we're 2,500 gold behind. It's exactly what we were hoping to avoid. And it feels like none of the lanes are immune from pressure right now. 2 levels in the jungle. Kirmi is behind. At least BennyQ, a bit of a lead over Dardes, who's rotated out of lane, equal in support at least. Vote just 1 level ahead. The early game has not gone well for the Valks still in the first 10.5 minutes.
No, not quite. And I noticed immediately when I saw how much damage Kirmi took to Nika that he was not going the typical Genji's guard build. He went for the Warlock staff. He does not want to sit back. He is picking some slow down solo back where he's just going to sit there and smack Aquarius. But with that Warlock slash and the Conduit Gem, he's going to be absolutely destroying the carries, as we just saw. So still has a ton of damage. It looks like Dardes could be in some trouble here. He does have to hide in the wall. And that's actually it.
Or are the Valkyries the ones who are in some trouble? Kirmi forced to sprint away. Fatal strike range reached. But Palau is there as well. Cubo Fred covering the escape path, but no abilities up. Beads burnt from Dardes. Called a small win. But again, who's going to capitalize on those burnt beads? I suppose Kirmi when the Palau is back up. Or maybe Gamma with an abduct. But for this point in the game, that's it. You're hoping that Kirmi can make a return to mid and make Dardes uncomfortable.
Yeah, it would be a decent opportunity, and Cubo's ult's down for a while, so maybe could try and CC the Achilles if possible. But at the moment, it seems like just trying to farm up as much as possible, and the Valks want to deny as much as they can as well. Like, hey, you can invade this, but not this. We're going to get our red buff. We took away your red buff last time. Don't have the ability to invade that one, so we're going to have to go for the Oracle. So the Valkyries are trying to get the neutral farm that they can without pushing out too far. Whenever they see Cubo for it back, they know they've got a little bit of breathing room. Obviously, Dardes still holding on to that ultimate. Could fly in at any moment, so you got to watch out for that. But the map state, at least you know that the Achilles is not going to be coming at you at any moment. A decent lead in the duo lane, Vote level 12, and has the hasten ring already. So anytime Wowie gets swoop, is going to be in some trouble. Even though he can dash out of it, just so much chase down from this Freya, the slow and auto attacks. And this purple buff no longer belongs to him because Cubo's already here and ready to defend it. Well, attack it.
Wowie got 1. Honestly, at this point, I think Cubo Fred is defending his own purple buff on this side of the map. It was a Valkyrie steal just a moment ago with how rent-free the Oni Warriors have been on the left side of the jungle on the Valhalla Valkyrie side of the map. And yet another, outside of something over the wall here, won't reach. Yet another purple buff goes over to the Oni Warrior. So a bit of a lull in the game that is now reignited as Neomod gets a root and the beads off of BennyQ. Remember, Kirmi towards mid could have an opportunity, but what a pull and a double knockup from Neoma. I think he only expected the one. Neoma gets pulled into the Palau, and Kirmi with the first kill of the game for the Valkyries. Scarab's Blessing down onto BennyQ, and the Valkyries rally around their mid. And they'll get 2 kills. Scarab's Blessing, Palau, both massive difference makers in that fight.
Yeah, that was a massive ult by Gamma. Good pull by Neil, but after you use that Wrath of Terror, you don't have any more CC immunity. The Palau is going to pull Sylvanas back in, and Neil's going to go and be dead for quite some time. As Vote is trying to 1v2 here, making that rotation. Could be in some trouble as the beats early on, not doing much damage.
Gamma body blocking all of the auto attacks, but double hunters against Gamma and Wowie might be enough for a kill. Valkyrie's discretion just shy of finishing off Gamma a bit too much from the Oni Warriors, and Wowie adds another. Now Dardes in a 2v1 himself, and all of the kills escaping, but Dardes drops down behind BennyQ. Wowie trying to body block the autos on and off the wall. Goes Dardes, and Wowie wins the trade. A double kill for the Valks duo lane, and they are right back in this game. After the early game did not go in their favor, Nika pulls back 1. But 1 is it, and the Valkyries resurge over the last couple minutes.
Nika sitting around the corner, maybe seeing if he could catch Wowie lazy backing. Not going to be the option. No blink available for the Croc, and he has to go back to solo lane. A triple kill, well, not triple kill, 3 kills in total for Wowie is absolutely massive. I already talked about the fact that the way he's been building, you're not going to get crit on for some time. If you get 3 kills handed to you, which he worked for, I'm not going to say they were spoon-fed, he will be getting that Wind Demon on very early on in this game, and that's going to help out a ton in that boxing match. Vote tried to 1v2 there, but Gamma just ate up so much damage. It just, the Freya autos were not connecting. You're going to see right here. He probably expected to like 3-shot Wowie, but just it was not able to happen. Goes into the ult, wasn't able to finish off the kill, and then it's a great answer back by the Valks.
Yeah, that 1 tick more of damage from the Valkyrie's discretion would have at least gotten a kill onto Gamma.
And the body blocks.
Dardes drops down. This is nearly a huge play from Dardes, but 1 more auto gets it. We're fighting in real game now. Vote pulled back into the powwow, and Wowie with another. The Jingwei scaling early in this game for the Valhalla Valkyries. Ikavale into the Xe, and then Wind Demon after the fact. And the Valkyries have pulled the Gold Fury. The Warriors playing with fire early in the game, but the Valhalla Valkyries have burnt them a bit over the last couple minutes. Gold Fury low and confirmed by the Valks, but now the Oni Warriors might need to get out of dodge. A couple low health members of the Valks on the backside of the Gold Fury pit. Actually, the Oni Warriors may be considering an initiation. Dardes has found Kirmi. A kill pulled back by the Onis. It looks like a kill for Gold Fury is what we've got. And Trelly, after a disastrous early game from the Valks, we are back to even at 16 minutes.
Yeah, a small lead in favor of the Warriors gold-wise, but it's negligible and just 2 kills in their favor as well. So a solid answer back as Benny Q and Cuvo might be doing a little bit of a ring around the rosy. I was wondering if he was trying to get aggressive, but he wants that speed buff more than anything. Nika did make the rotation into that Gold Fury a little bit late. If he was there, maybe able to stop some of that presence. I still think the level 15 Sobek is a force to be reckoned with on the map, but you know, didn't really have the teleport available. Didn't want to walk all the way over there. Had blink, but couldn't get there in time. So not really using that influence. Wasn't a true 5v5.
Right.
You want to make sure you're using that 2-0 Sobek to your advantage, but it's one Gold Fury, and now the Oni Warriors with that Pyromancer will be able to pull ahead just a small bit. Looking at the level lead, actually, we could be in some trouble with Aquarius. I think Kyo has the ult available, and he does.
He does, and he's got some good damage with the hi-rez. Aquarius gallops away. Another pluck from Nika connects. This time forces the beads off of Aquarius' Fatal Strike. Easy as you like. And another kill over to the Oni Warriors. 5-1 as Kibo Fred tosses a fist bump the way of Nika. The mid-game fist bump is truly next level tech.
Yeah.
But how about the tier 1 tower dive on the left side of the map? Dash in from Kiri up to the powwow. Valkyrie's discretion, big value, and ultimate in from Dardes. The Valks now may be the team that's overextending. Scarab's Blessing procced, but Nika hits another pluck. Gamma is going to get left by the wayside, and that may be the only kill opportunity for the Oni Warriors left.
Another pluck probably coming Gamma's way, unfortunately, because of the CDR, so the Kepri is not going to be able to make it out. This is what I was talking about. Just because the Valks won that early fight, Nika was not there. If this Sobek is in the fight, I think it's a completely different beast that you have to deal with. With Breastplate of Valor, the Warlock staff already stacked up. There's no kin size, there's no Soul Reaver. It's very hard to shred through the HP that he's built. He's got plenty of mitigations with that Oni Hunter's Garb. It's just, I don't imagine anyone's able to kill this Sobek. So as long as he's making his presence known, the Valk's day just gets so much worse. There's a lot of beads up currently, but Gamma's was not at the time. So the second pluck made sure to guarantee that kill, and unfortunately, more farm going the way of the Oni Warriors as that gold lead that was pretty close, I'd say, what, 3-4 minutes ago, has grown a little bit.
Oh my god! We're actually back to a worse gold state than we were prior to the Valkyries coming back into this game. Unbelievable. The Oni Warriors knocked down a tier 1 in mid and right and left and find a few more kills. It's almost like when the Valkyries get some wind in their sails and start playing aggressive themselves, the Oni Warriors know exactly how to counter out their over-aggression, I suppose. Just tough for the Valkyries. It's another pull in. Gamma not in Fatal Strike range, doesn't matter. Dardes gets another. Oni Warriors starting to roll a bit again here as you're getting closer to a 5,000 gold lead at 19 minutes. And that is tough. It's almost the same thing, again, that I was talking about. You don't want to passively fall this far behind. They're not going to give me a chance to talk about anything. But it's like they didn't passively fall super far behind early.
Right.
The game stabilized, but now, again, the Valkyries are just falling so far behind again over the last few minutes.
Yeah, you bite the Oni Warriors bite back, and there is one shimmering ray of hope, and it is that Wowie is 4-0 on the Jingwei. Unfortunately, is a level behind because the duo lane farm has been largely contested as we see a purple buff spawn, and we see a purple buff stolen away. Not going to be able to get credit for any of that. So Wowie would love to use this influence, get a Deathbringer and rotate in and just be massive in these fights, but it's difficult when the rest of your team is this far behind. Most notably, is that jungle. Kirmi is level 14, unfortunately.
My
Fred
goodness.
is level 18 at 20 minutes, give or take. You want more than 3 items, I would say, if you're Kirmi. And he's been trying his best. He's been hitting some Palau shots. He's been getting active as much as you can. But with so much of your farm contested, with so many of your lanes behind, the jungle has to start sapping from his teammates if he wants to stay even. And since BennyQ actually has a level lead, Kirmi doesn't want to steal from him.
Sure don't. Should be a dead Aquarius here. 3 members of the Oni Warriors make their way over to the solo lane. Cubo Fred would love to hold on to the ultimate. Will be able to do so. Dardez on a killing spree. And Aquarius just used everything and didn't really have a chance to get out there. So the RDO has actually been kept pretty far at bay this game. Only the 1 level, but 0-3, whereas Nika 2-0-6. The teleports and the plucks have simply just done more than what we've seen from the RDO this game, who's just desperately stuck around in lane and tried to farm themselves up. A couple Spirit Ropes come online now for the Oni Warriors as well. 1 for Nika, 1 for Cubo Fred. It was hard enough to kill this team a moment ago. Valhalla Valkyries might be steamrolling towards hopefully a 40-45 minute game where they can stabilize and get their items online.
Yeah, that would be the ideal situation. When you got the Merlin and the Jingwei, that is what you're praying for, right? There is a Soul Reaver coming soon, and once BennyQ gets that, I think that will help alleviate some of the stress. There's a lot of HP built on these tanks. More specifically, that's Sobek. I'm telling you, at the start of this fight, wherever Nika is, there's going to be some plucking, and if you're not killing him off that pluck, there's just going to be more and more. It's going to be so annoying to deal with. And he's not building full tank. He's got the Conduit Gem, the Warlock Sash. He has percent pen. So he's going to be doing a ton of damage to everyone he hits as well. These carries could essentially be 1v1 by this Sobek, and he really wouldn't care. Pyromancer spawns back in, and once again will fall. We've done a bit of a lane swap here where Dardez is going to be clearing the left side minions because he's got that global presence. He can fly in whenever he needs to, whereas Vote has to take his feet the whole way from this side of the map, and he wants to be as close to Fire Giant as possible since that Fire Giant, or the Gold Fury rather, the Oni Fury specifically, just went down.
This has got to be frustrating for the Valks because it really, as a team, you got to feel like you really came back into this game around that 10 to 15 minute mark where the Oni Warriors started overextending a bit. You equalized out the game, and it really felt the Valkyries were playing with momentum there for a little while. But you just lost objectives on the map, gave the gold lead back to the Oni Warriors. You're putting a lot of weight on Wowie at this point in the game, where your 4-0-1 Jingwei just has not, since getting to 4-0-1, the Oni Warriors have taken fights just away from the Jingwei and completely mitigated Wowie's ability to have an impact on this match. Now you get to 23 minutes. Oni Warriors so far ahead of this game. May just be able to force a Fire Giant if they wanted to. Vote 4 rings into that build. This Freya is going to absolutely wail away on health bars. And then you go back to the team fight concerns. How do the Valkyries even team fight? Much less this far behind, but you're just hoping Kirmi hits, to quote Myth, a category 10 natural disaster Palau, or maybe Nico overextending.
Well, that would be nice. This would be a massive kill, but he actually definitely dies here. Yeah, that's a huge pick on a Nika.
That is big shred from the Valkyries. Then that's just Nika being too far forward. But to the Valks, do you say this is the best chance we've got?
Attack that Fire Giant
to
right
get
now.
A fire. This is the best chance we've got. We get a free
100%.
pick. Nika is gone. And the Valks will dance around the FG, just push back the Oni Warriors. Cubo Fred on the backside of the Fire Giant pit. What a turning point in the game this would be. But Gamma is taking so much damage from the fire. Neoma locked in place. Chains connecting. Airstrike up and over Vote, who has had to use the Aegis. Cubo Fred finds a fatal strike at max range onto Gamma. Second of the fight for Cubo Fred. And the Achilles ripping through the Valhalla Valkyries. Give Cubo Fred the triple. And suddenly there's only 2 left. Quad, not there. The fatal strike doesn't execute BennyQ, but Cubo Fred's got the momentum. This is a good old-fashioned gold lead making the difference. Cubo Fred won't get the quad, but he'll help out on 3.9 of the kills, and the Oni Warriors shut down the Valks again.
I mean, in a different world, that is certainly a pentakill. Unfortunate that BennyQ's not going to let that one slide. The fatal strike, not enough to confirm that kill, and then didn't have the dash, the combat dodge to try and finish that one. But, you lose Nika at the beginning of the fight. The Oni Warriors, they said, we really didn't care. We actually didn't need the Sobek to make sure we win this fight.
Think they did.
Cubo sneaking around the back. It's the whole back line of the Valks by surprise. You just can't live long enough to make sure that. I was going to say the whole issue with this comp now is that you have no front line. Gamma can't be the first one into the fights because he'll just be executed. Of course, Aquarius would love to, but he has nothing to close gap. He went teleport and beads, whereas Nika has the blink. He's able to close that gap. Aquarius can't do that. And even without their Sobek, the Oni Warriors were able to win that one. When I looked up and saw how far Vote was in that fight, I was like, wait, maybe this is bad. There's a Freya that's in the thick of it, so far in the back line. But it didn't seem to matter. So much damage coming out from this Achilles. And beautiful bait by Neilma as well to make sure that the rest of the Valks were split up.
Man, at this point, the Oni Warriors might just give up a pick like that just to force the Valkyries into a fight, because otherwise the Valks are going to keep backpedaling, stay away from the Fire Giant. Maybe you just sacrifice one of your team members to give the Valks a false sense of confidence.
Just a strategic
which allows you
death.
a strategic death that allows you to force the fight a moment later. Again, I assume a game like this has got to be frustrating for the Valks because you fell behind a bit early, but you feel like you made some changes that allowed you to come back into this game. You capitalized on mistakes from the Oni Warriors, and then it was just the same thing that lost you the lead early over the next few minutes. And now the Oni Warriors steamrolling their way to what looks like a Game 1 win over the Valkyries. Over 10,000 gold ahead, Fire Giant on everyone but Vote. And you just won a 4v5 pretty handedly, and your jungler is 8-1-4. Dardes has played so well this game around the ultimate from the Chernobog. I'm not sure the Valks feel super confident even underneath their Phoenix defense.
Yeah, I think you're right. They want to try and put up as much of a defense as possible, stall out this FG, but I'd say losing a bird right now would be one of the best case scenarios you could go for. Of course, defending in its entirety would be ideal, but Cuvo is splitting up Kirmi here. It looks like Vote was posturing towards that mid lane as well. I'm waiting for the pluck in from Nika, and it looks like the blink will start this one out.
Blink and force the flicker away. Some damage out of NEQ, but a lot of damage connecting onto Gamma and Aquarius. Left side Phoenix down. Kirmi has gone in and up now to the Palau. Dardes will do the same. Kirmi drops down, gets the Scarab's Blessing. Aquarius chasing down Nika. No kills have dropped just yet, but Dardes has found some auto attacks. He's 1 versus 5 on the back line of this fight, and the Oni Warriors have rallied around their mid laner, and Dardes will end this fight on a rampage.
Yeah, it looks like Benny Q is trying to chase as much as possible. Neil's very slow on the Vanus, not too much movement speed, but the Valks don't have many tools to try and chase this one out. So never mind, they're not running. It looks like they're just going for the mid Phoenix. Even with these low health bars, they have the Wisp. They can heal up as much as they can. So now it's time for that Emperor's Armor to get its money's worth. Gamma is going to have to frontline this fight because Aquarius is gone for 30 more seconds.
Yeah, Neo just providing so much utility to his team. Lotus Crown on Sylvanas. A fan favorite for a while, and it's back now for Neilma. An Abduct to counter the pluck results in almost nothing, as Cubo Fred sends plenty of damage Kirmi's way. Mid lane Phoenix now gone as well. Cubo Fred yelling about something. My man is feeling himself, and for good reason. He is 8-1-5 in Game 1 on a less than conventional pick. This is like the scariest iteration of Oni Warriors to go up against. When Cubo Fred is yelling about a Phoenix dropping, that's when you know the Oni Warriors are in their flow state. And this team is going to be hard-pressed to lose this game. Going to take a miraculous fumble with the state of the game at the moment.
And can we go back to the kill Cubo got underneath the tower, leans over and gives Nika a knuckle touch while still tanking said tower. With Achilles ult, every time you use it, you get weaker. Like, this is esports. You can't just stop in the middle to give your team a knuckle touch.
This is esports. That's why you can do that.
I mean, I'm saying, like, you know, like this is like a free throw. You shoot it. You give your teammates a high five. The action is stopped. This is still mid-fight, where he's able to just be like, hey, man, good stuff. Let's continue this. And when you're right to say, when Cubo's on point like this and he's getting active, I just have my eyes glued to the player cam to see his energy because I'm also that hyped up now.
It's infectious.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's like a running back fist bumping his lineman as he runs through the hole that the lineman creates.
Exactly.
For him to run
hey, man, good block. I'm going to go get a
touchdown now, right? Yeah, appreciate you. Fire Giant's going to be up in 20 seconds here. The only reason the Valhalla Valkyries felt remotely comfortable stepping up to the last one is because Nika was a bit too far forward and it ended up dying. And now the game state is much, much worse. I don't know if there's a world where the Valks even remain on this side of the map. Game could just end. Because you think you've got some damage. You think there's an opening, onto one of the members of the Oni Warriors, and then this keeps happening.
Oh,
You get baited in by your own damage, and the Oni Warriors remind you just how far ahead they are. Gamma, the first to go down. This is looking like a massive team fight win for the Oni Warriors. Kirmi goes to the powwow. Neoma and Nika unconcerned. Another triple kill for Cubo Fred. He's got eyes for the quad, but Benny Q has eyes for the fountain, and the Oni Warriors, Trelly, they'll close out game one in just over 30 minutes.
Yeah, Benny Q's gonna do some fancy moves inside of the well to try and survive. And
Look at Cubo. I want to see if Cubo.
Oh, he's gonna get up and pop off. No matter what the game is, it's business as usual. He's gonna make sure he gets his team hyped up as Benny Q does his best to try and find one more kill, and he looks like he will send Neoma to the grave.
Oh, those are my fantasy points, Neil. At the end of the game, that is unbelievable. And Cubo Fred.
There you go.
Knuckle touches, hand claps, knuckle touches all around for the Oni Warriors. Look, again, I mean, you're hoping the Valks don't get disheartened by games like this, because the game starts in the same way that the previous games this weekend did for the Valkyries, but they were able to stabilize. They were able to capitalize on the Oni Warriors' mistakes and get that game right back to even. It's the falling back into the massive gold deficit, allowing the Oni Warriors to control the game, that probably will frustrate the Valks here after game one.
Yeah, I would say so. Wow, he was able to get those 3 kills, and I thought maybe he would be able to translate to something. If anything, the Valks need to, just dial it back, go back to the booth, give each other some knuckle touches, get that morale up, and get ready for game 2.
Yeah, only one team has been knuckle touching, and I think that might be a difference here. The one team who's been knuckle touching is the one team that's got to win here in this set. Maybe some fist bump classes between games, and the Valhalla Valkyries have a chance in game number 2, which is coming up next.
But he had the Horsey, and Horsey, don't you stop! Fido kicks! Fido!
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final Call. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Ripping through! Titan down, ball 3! A double kill myself!
Hello and welcome back. Game number 1 between the Warriors and the Valkyries goes the way of the Warriors. But before we get into the breakdown, I've got a very special announcement we have to make and maybe a very special promotion. If you go to shop.hi-rezstudios.com, we got a little bit of merch that's still left out there, and it's your last chance to pick up some of these great t-shirts, hats, figures, and anything else that they might be offering in the store that you might not be able to get your hands on any longer. I'm not just saying last chance. It's literally on the promotional. This is your final opportunity to pick up some of the great merchandise that we have over at shop.hi-rezstudios.com. So make sure to go there now before you don't have an opportunity to do so in the future. One more time, shop.hi-rezstudios.com. Oni Warriors in control of the early, the mid, and the late game. Some bounce back from the Valkyries, though, Mifflin. It wasn't a complete blowout right away. About 10 or so minutes in, we saw the Valkyries be able to push back from a 3K deficit, even out that game. But then the Oni Warriors kind of rallied it back together and were able to bring this one to them.
Yeah, just that one moment of brilliance, though, wasn't it? Like, wow, he really stepped up in that one individual spot. The Valks get the Gold Fury afterward, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, keep that momentum, keep moving, stick and move, you know, throw some rights, throw some lefts. And the Valks kind of like stood still with their hands on their sides afterward, and the Oni Warriors said, well, that was rough, and nothing came of it immediately afterward. And then you got to give credit over to Cubo Fred for his performance, because he really was a huge proponent of bringing that bounce back for the Oni Warriors. And once they got it back, it never went the way of the Valks yet again. I mean, it was just clean control after one individual misstep, which is interesting because I think the theme of this week in the SPL is one mistake cost you the game. Every single set, it feels like. Even in the last set, it was one mistake around the Fire Giant, and then all of a sudden the Levi's are stepping up, or one mistake around the Gold Fury, and the Camelot Kings are stepping up. And maybe that is the biggest change we need to see from the Valkyries. It's the punishment game at the SPL level where one mistake can cost you. I think the Oni Warriors, had they made that similar mistake as what we saw where the Valkyries were finding that bounce back, had that happen against any other team, might have cost the Oni Warriors the match, but the Valkyries weren't quite able to optimize on it perfectly, and the Warriors did not give them a second chance.
And that's something that we get to talk about sometimes with some of the SCC players when they come in for their lands. We got to talk to the Valkyries as a whole when they jumped up from the SCC to the SPL. Is that difference in worlds? In the SCC, you can make one of those mistakes. It's not the end of the world. Teams aren't going to really capitalize on it. But in the SPL, you make that one little misstep, and you're suddenly now 2,000-3,000 gold down. You're down a few extra kills that you didn't realize, and it happens in the blink of an eye. And we got to see a perfect execution of that here, where the Warriors make one misstep in the mid lane. The Valkyries capitalize on it. They get 3 kills during that one, swing the gold back to dead even, and then the Valkyries able to get that Gold Fury afterwards, and then again, one more misstep, this time by the Valkyries, and the Oni Warriors are able to bring the game back to them, to their favor, and then eventually that just ballooned out of control, and the Oni Warriors take game number 1 away from the Valkyries. So when it comes down to game number 2, with how at least back and forth it was in the early game, is there much from the Valkyries draft that you kind of change up in the second game?
I really liked the Valkyries draft. Just top to bottom, I thought the composition was good. The only concern I had, and it's the concern I had brought up during the initial P's and B's, was who's facilitating this Daji? Because during that entire match, I'm watching the Oni Warriors beads like a hawk. Those beads were not down. And when they did go down, it was just for the Daji pool. Outside of that, nothing was really coming of it. So if I would want to see any individual change from the Valks, it's maybe if you are going back to the Daji, let's get a little bit more CC with it.
Maybe so. Well, the Valkyries will continue their trend of banning stuff away from Dardes at the very least. The Morgan, once again, banned away from the mid laner of the Oni Warriors, this time adding a vote ban there with Freya taken off the board. Oni Warriors will at least continue their warrior bans out in this one. Kirimi not going to get his Erlong Shen, and Bologna once again going to be banned away from Aquarius, not allowing him to get something strong and kind of that bully style over in the solo lane. And we really didn't get to see much from the solo lane as of early to that game, I guess to be expected of a Sobek RDO who are running some pretty heavy defense and HP there. Not a whole lot going to happen there. But once those team fights did break through, those Sobek plucks that were coming out of Nika were just on point, able to set up for so much, especially in that duo lane fight, getting 2 of them off in one fight to make sure to lock down Gamma.
Yeah, Nika steps up big for his team there, and I think you can expect that style of play and that level of play from Nika pretty consistently for the Oni Warriors. Chernobog going to round out the bans for the Valkyries, removing some of that global presence, the ability to split push, as well as that phenomenal late game scaling, something that had suited the Warriors very well. But the Warriors now have to make a decision. When they were in the first pick position, they had banned out Yamoja from themselves. Now have the opportunity to take it away from the Valks. I would be surprised if they didn't ban the Yamoja, unless they're just hedging their bet saying, hey, the Valks won't take it. But if you're banning it and not taking it yourself, and now it's up to the Valks, you got to think they're just going to do it again, right?
Gotta imagine so. And the Oni Warriors are taking some time to think if that is what they want to go with. Do they want to ban that Yemoja and not take the risk of the Valk driving it? Or do they want to take the risk and maybe hope that the Valkyries themselves will not pick that one up? Few notable other junglers still available, though. Nemesis has not been banned away, so that could be a first pick option for the Valkyries if the Warriors do ban away the Yemoja, or it could be something the Warriors ban away in hopes that maybe they can get a better trade. For now, they're going to coin toss. Do they want the Yemoja? Do they want the Nemesis? It's now up to the Valks to take their first pick.
Valks could just go ahead and ignore the pick. I suppose it's a game of like chicken, right? Which one of you is going to pull the trigger first? Because the Valks have got the data, realizing Oni Warriors in the first slot wouldn't select it, and instead had banned it out. So the Valks will take Osiris for themselves. Has some flex potential, could go over to the solo, could go over to the jungle. I think I'd prefer to see it in the jungle for the Valkyries. Kirmi just really loves that in-your-face style of pick, the Shivas, the Erlongs, the Osirises, things that can get Manic and Scepter and get active very early on. I mean, we'd even heard it from the initial interview from Cubo Fred. When he thinks of the Valkyries, he thinks of the two-man core of Benny and Kirmi just getting aggressive in mid. Osiris is a pick that facilitates that style of play very well.
So now it's up to the Oni Warriors to see, do they want to grab their jungler now? Nemesis is still available, something that Cubo Fred is no stranger to at all throughout his career in playing competitive Smite. Do they want to grab that Yemoja? Again, it was banned by the Oni Warriors in first pick in game number 1. Now they have the option to grab it for themselves, call the bluff of the Valkyries who have gone for this Osiris first pick. Will not be either of those, at least for this first one. Artio going to be the one locked in. That's going over to Nika in the solo lane.
Yeah, Ardio's just good, man. I mean, Conduit Gem really has shored up the weaknesses of this pick, as Yemoja is going to flank it in that second slot. So a lot of in-combat healing now for the Oni Warriors. Anti-heal very quickly becoming the discussion for the Valkyries. You've already got a pretty good start at it with Lord of the Afterlife, removing 100% healing with whoever you can connect with that ultimate. But Artio just giving everybody healing in a team fight. Yemoja out of combat healing as well. I'm not sure that Osiris is enough on his own. This might be a discussion around Ankh. I think it might be really worth the while the Valkyries to go ahead and pick that up. Maybe not in the first relic slot, but certainly in second.
Well, still, some picks for Benny Q typically have been reserved for the latter half of the draft, but do you think that with the Valkyries in a position that they're in, they've got some pressure with this Osiris, they have the pick of the litter as to mid lane, do you think that the Valkyries maybe should draft something for Benny Q now, or do you want him to hold on to that and see what the Warriors draft around it?
See, when I think of Benny, I really do think the brothers of the league, right? Benny and Pagon have got similar styles of, hey, I just want to get the counter pick. I just really want to look for those 1v1s, and I think that could be an option for the Valkyries. And with as many mid laners that are still available, you don't really need to worry about just 2 more bans towards it. So I think holding off could have suited them well, but with Poseidon now locked in, I think that is pretty likely headed over to Benny Q in mid. Assuming it's Robin solo, you're going to have that high mitigation style of build, Warding Sigil, Spirit Robe, things along those lines, Oni Hunter Garb. Very strong with Robin and how that interacts with the rest of his kit. So a high pressure composition now from the Valkyries. Osiris in the jungle should bring that early fight potential. We saw for Big Man Tings earlier what this movement speed Poseidon can do as far as just getting involved everywhere on the map and clearing out farm on the way and still getting there before your opposition. So this could be a style of draft from the Valks where they're just trying to speed blitz the Oni Warriors.
Well, the Oni Warriors will draft a Muzan Cobb to maybe try and deal with some of that tankiness that we've been seeing on that Robin. And so far, the only answer that we've seen to how do we deal with this high mitigation, super defensive, cannot die kind of a Robin style of play that's developed in the SPL in this last week has been from the Atlantis Leviathans, where they just outright ignored the Robin. They said, okay, you're unkillable. Go to a lane of your own. We're just not even going to deal with it at one bit. So maybe the Oni Warriors can draft a similar style of mindset up against it. As far as the bans are concerned, though, for the second wave, Xingqian and Baron Samedi by the Oni Warriors. The Valkyries will ban away a couple of junglers, Da Ji and Fenrir both taken away.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that style of play to deal with Robin, right? You can, it's 2 avenues of thought as far as I'm concerned. Either ignore him in the late game and hope that you're killing their backline before you're dying in your own backline, which is pretty fair of a bet, right? Because, of course, the Robin, who's got like a low-nose mask, isn't doing a whole lot of damage. Or, alternatively, you could just get really active early. Doesn't matter how much defense he can have if he doesn't have it just yet. Seems to me the Oni Warriors have gone for option 3, which is Shred. The Retribution from Nemesis, Stinger from a Muzan Cobb. Of course, shredding defense, not mitigations itself, but still certainly interacts and still certainly makes it easier to shut down some of these picks.
Valkyries, 2 more picks. They're going to need their duo lane now. Gamma and WoW have had the chance to look at what they're going up against. And, well, you got a River's Rebuke out of Yamoja, so you need some way to maybe get around that. The Khepri is still available if Gamma wants to go back to that, but instead he'll go back to a signature pick of his. This Kabrakan has most notably been going over to Gamma time and time again. It seems to be just a comfort pick for the support.
I'm not sure how much I really like
the hunt
Kabrakan
begin.
in this matchup in particular, right? If you go into the Tremor, multiple ways to deal with that. Great burst potential. Yamoja's going to stun it out pretty consistently during the laning phase. Ardio can do the exact same thing. If you're dedicating time to standing still, it's not as if the supports are allowed to go towards that same mitigation build that we're seeing from the solo lane. So Muzen Cobb having a free target essentially, or Nemesis shredding away that defense could make it very difficult. But you do have some interesting interactions in that Kabrakan cage just stops the Oni Warriors. Just about none of them have really got any way to deal with it outside of a Phantom Shell.
Well, Olarun, the final pick for the Oni Warriors, and Artemis for the Valhalla Valkyries, something that WoWie has been going back to a lot more often. It used to be the Charybdis was kind of the default go-to for WoWie. Then we didn't see Charybdis for a little while.
Cupid for a little bit.
Then Cupid popped its way up. Now it seems to be Artemis for this player. And it seems that WoWie is just going for these more setup style, get you a god that can be somewhat safe in lane, be able to self-peel, or have some kind of teamfight presence out there. But if you want to talk about teamfight presence, I mean, the Oni Warriors, they've drafted Olarun, probably one of the best teamfight ults you can ask for in the game.
Just a really good team fight composition top to bottom. Good shred, phenomenal DPS, good objective burn potential. Not really the best in secure. So could be that Benny gets real active with this Kraken and puts the threat to the Oni Warriors there. But Artemis, I think, actually very good into this composition. If Nemesis is diving, she's generally only going to have that Ardio with her, as Yamoja is more so in line of the, hey, I'm going to sit in the back line and heal up my guys here, or I'll use Riptides to displace from a range. I don't really want to be right in the front line for the most part. So if it's just a 2-man dive, having Caledonian Boar is going to help you out a fair bit. I really do like the Artemis selection in that regard. Also just has great matchup in both Yamoja, Ardio, and Nemesis. All 3 of them very reliant on those slows. Vengeful Assault means that you are slow immune, which is really good for disengage. The Caledonian Boar, as we already talked about, really good as a counter engagement tool as well. So I think Artemis, a good selection here, and one that can synergize well with Kabrakan. If you're getting a lead in this dual lane, a stun into trap combo might just cost anyone their life, even with TTK changes.
Yeah, and even being able to, if you can get a set of purification beats from this, or burned by this Kabrakan earlier, should be able to guarantee a setup there. So when it comes down to, I mean, you're still looking at, 3 auto attackers on the side of the Oni Warriors. Objectives got to be the name of the game for them. Do the Valhalla Valkyries team fight maybe make up for maybe some of that lack of presence around those objectives of the Warriors?
Just like I said in game 1, I think it's reliant on early game. This time around, the Valkyries have got a much better shot of controlling the early game. When you look at their draft, it's pressure, 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 and an Artemis. So you got the pressure to facilitate this Artemis into the late game. Once you do get there, of course, your scaling's not bad at all. Poseidon shreds objectives. Artemis does the exact same thing. Great secure. Osiris has got to step up, I think. Assuming that it is Osiris in the jungle. It doesn't really matter which one of the 2 it is, Osiris or Raven. Keep your eyes on Kirmi. He is the win condition for the Valkyries early game.
Can the Valkyries step it up in game number 2, or the Oni Warriors gonna run away with it? Let's jump right into the second game.
I love the draft the Valkyries are bringing into game number 2 here, Trelia. I think address some concerns of mine from game 1. And look, they've drafted straight from meta of the SPL going into this game, haven't they? The dual lane a bit different from what we've normally seen. Poseidon's been towards the top, though. Osiris been towards the top of the conversation. Raven solo has been all of the conversation here as of late. So I like what the Valkyries have changed, what they've adapted, and at least have given themselves a shot through picks and bans to find success here in game 2.
Yeah, the picks and bans definitely looks like they're trying something new. Not the whole way around. Obviously, Benny Q on the Poseidon, Gam on his Kabrakan, and Wowie on Artemis. That's nothing out of the ordinary. But I do like seeing the early aggression with the Osiris. I expect to see Kirmi blinking in consistently if he gets the chance, which there are 2 blinks on the side of the Valk, so they are trying to close some gap early. And hopefully, Aquarius is able to find some form of aggression in this lane. Without the Soul Eater online, I don't think the Robin trades too well into Ardio with the Conduit gem, but once that Soul Eater gets finished and you start stacking, could be some sparks flying over there in the Soul lane as well, so I agree.
Gamma takes a little bit of damage and falls a bit behind. Luckily for Gamma, Neoma is out of Omi. Otherwise, Gamma actually could have been in a bit of trouble early on. You're going to need Gamma to get aggressive. That's what you want to do on this Kabrakan. You've got Blink. I need to blink in, find some stuns. Do you think that can happen in lane here, though, ends up being the question. Maybe if there's help from Kirmi, yes. But the conversation around how long it takes Hunters to get up and running still is a thing here. Vote going with the arrow start, obviously the ring build around the corner. And so I wonder, especially with the Emoja in front, if it's just going to kind of be a quiet laning phase over in the dual lane, or we'll see some sparks.
Yeah, until Kirmi shows up, it should definitely be quiet. It's just Wowie doesn't do much damage. Vote is always going to be able to out DPS an Artemis, and you're up against the Shell, whereas you have the Blink. Pretty low health bars over here in solo, however. Aquarius has been getting active. The wave, however, has not been cleared, so can't really try and kill Nika because all of those minions will just turn on you. And it looks like Nika will just back up, has a teleport, and was actually baiting me and Aqua to get in a little bit of extra poke. I was going to say, they both have the teleport available, so once they are able to start stacking, if Nika does go back to that Warlock Sash like we saw last match, and Aqua going for the Soul Eater respectively, they should be able to farm some more in that lane, but still, not going to see too much aggression. But it does look like Cubo is trying to get a little bit aggressive, invading some of the camps of Kirmi and looking towards that blue buff. We might see a little bit of a fight, but given the health bar of the RDO, I don't think any more aggression should continue at this blue.
I think, yeah, Nika and Kivo probably talking with one another. Nika says, I'm way too low, not worth the risk. We'll just give this blue over. That's exactly what happens. If Neil can steal away a purple, which he's not, Hog ready to go for Gamma. Oh, that would have hurt to lose through a Hog. We've already seen that once this week, but not going to happen again, and Wowie will be able to pick up his purple buff. Because think back to game one. Again, the passive gold lead that the Oni Warriors built up. A lot of jungle invades, purple buffs consistently being stolen away by the Oni Warriors, and also Cuvo Fred getting active and starting to run the lead a bit early on in game one. And so those are the types of things the Oni Warriors will want to replicate, but the Valks stabilizing that over the first few minutes of this game, always going to be a good look for the Valkyrie squad. Cuvo Fred on the Nemesis. He's got Blink as well. You imagine level 5 Trelly. You're going to see Cuvo Fred start to put some pressure on a few of these lanes.
Yeah, it certainly could be a possibility. I got my eyes to the mid lane more often than not. I mean, Poseidon and AMC both extremely gankable at any points of the game. They just are not very mobile. They're speedy, but this early on they don't have too many points into their abilities that give them that movement speed. And also with just Cursed Orb build, Benny Q's not going to be that fast clearing the wave. So there could be some options for both of these junglers to get active in the mid lane. Both opting into that blink can close gap on these immobile mid laners pretty easily. No relics are being forced though. Benny Q has that nuke in the Kraken.
Well, Kabrakan is kind of a nuke.
Yeah, they've got the Kabrakan and the Kraken, so we could see some Kraken. I don't know how else I could phrase it. Either way, they could force out the beads pretty easily on the Dardas and then look for an opportunity elsewhere. But also, you got to watch out for the fact that he's staying at that tower line for a reason. Cubo's looking to wrap around here on the mid lane and could get aggressive on a Benny Q. He's got no idea he's behind him.
Wow, I don't think Benny Q spotted Cuvo. Oh my god, and Benny.
Where's he going?
I don't know what he did there. Didn't drop a ward or anything. And Kraken's gonna go out, but Benny Q is in serious trouble here. Mystic Rush up and over. But Stinger flies in from Dardas, and what was just a single kill may end up being a second here as well. Cubo Fred chasing down Aquarius, and Dardas adds another for the Oni Warriors. Would have been funny if Dardas blocked Cubo underneath the tier 1 tower. Doesn't happen though. Benny Q just on a bit of a journey there.
He did.
Cubo Fred perfect positioning. And Aquarius trying to save the life of his mid laner ends up giving another kill to the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm assuming Benny Q is rotating over to blue buff, saying like, hey man, I got you. I'll bring a Kraken into the blue buff. I can help you out if need be. Didn't know that Cubo was ringing around Rosie and him. Like it's like a Scooby-Doo scene where you never know where the bad guy is. He wraps you around, and unfortunately the beads and the Kraken were not enough.
And he loses the blue buff.
And then Aquarius ults in to try and help him, and he also dies. Sometimes you just gotta let your buddy die. You know, he'll respawn, he'll come back. No reason to give the gold to the opposition, so Dardas gets credit for a kill. And Nika. Cubo gets 2 assists though, which means that the gold was spread throughout. All of the Oni Warriors are going to get a little bit of a buff from that.
Big winner though is Nika for sure. Gets the kill and the assist. Of course, Dardas yes as well, but Benny Q being able to get back to lane a little bit quicker, farm up some of the waves there in mid. A slight lead over in the dual lane. Neilma and Vote had both just a moment ago been 1 level ahead, call it half level in the ADCs, maybe a full level. Neilma is over Gamma. come rotation time, that's where this Yamoja could potentially punish over in mid. River's Rebuke flies up. Benny Q gets locked down. Benny Q takes the retribution. Cubo Fred just dashes out of the Kraken, but a stun from Gamma keeps him in place, and Kiermi with the Osiris is able to snag a kill. Stinger flies through from Dardes. That is a simple pick for the Valhalla Valkyries and just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, Cubo doesn't have that beads either, so I highlighted the fact that Benny Q could be an option to get aggressive, and that Kraken was a good option, but not onto the B. It was onto Nemesis, and Cubo Fred will go down, and a return back this time, Kiermi gets credit, so a good answer back given the fact that Cubo had 2 assists. You don't want to let your jungle opposition get too far ahead of you. And it looks like maybe a rotation over this blue buff once again. Kiermi's not going to be there. Aquarius is going to have to ult over the wall, and I don't even know if he can stall long enough. He will be able to Mystic Rush, and the blue buff probably going away.
Blue buff. So all of the pressure in game 1 was around the purple buff for the Oni Warriors. They just sent everyone to the purple buff. Purple buff, purple buff, purple. Oh my, can you say that?
Purple buff, purple buff, purple buff. Did I say it? I don't think I said the ult.
The one in the middle was a bit jumbled.
Possible.
You got to really enunciate.
Yeah, that's true. That's
and I don't think I can do that. Point is, though, in game 1, the Warriors put all of their pressure on the purple buff. This game looks like keeping Aquarius behind on this Robin is the name of the game, going for continued blue buff invades. Bit of a roam from Wowie here. The Valks fishing for kills and pressure on the Oni Warrior side of the jungle, on the left side of the map. Voda's 2 levels ahead of Wowie. I'm not sure what happened over on left, but maybe 1 level fully. But falling behind to an Oleron early on in the game, in the laning phase, not a great feeling for the Valks.
Yeah, definitely not ideal. And I think anytime there's just no option to get aggressive on Devote because of the fact that no one has beads that would want to kill him, right? Obviously, Wowie could just drop the ult and then you just trade beads, and you don't want to fight into the sanctified field if they have beads, because the boar is just a quick stun and then you're losing that advantage. Gamma only has the blink, so if you're blinking in and then you're in slow motion for the rest of the fight, you don't have a great time there. Kiermi as well could use the Lord of the Afterlife for a small moment of CC immunity, but besides that, you're not going to find too much damage, so I expect to see the duo lane vastly ignored by the Oni Warriors. I mean, by the Valks. The Oni Warriors also could ignore it because Vote can stand on his own 2 feet. He's got the Gilded proc. He's already got a level lead. They also will probably stay away from that as much as possible. Wowie is going to slowly try and catch up as much as possible. You're going to be a little bit behind with the Gilded procs, and as long as Vote keeps doing these Harpy camps as much as possible, there will be a little bit of aggression as Gamma spotted out Cuvo for a second, and he knows this blue buff's about to spawn in, and they're trying to help Aqua as much as they can.
Kiermi has a tether out. Benny Q, though, takes the retribution. Where does the Kraken drop? On top of Neoma, but Nika's got damage for Benny Q. Something else in mind for the Oni Warriors. And truly, this is not a surprise, right? The Valkyries are not surprised by this. It is 3 blue buffs in a row that the Warriors have sent their pressure to the right side of the map. This is not a disguised gank. That's just how the Valhalla Valkyries felt like they should respond, and it's not a particularly close fight. The Kraken doesn't end up doing much. Only connects on a Neoma. So 2 kills plus another blue buff to the Oni Warriors. And we're right back to what I said the Valks need to avoid. You're 9.5 minutes in, and you're passively 3,000 gold behind. Yes, a few kills have dropped, but it's all the invades. A red buff now gets stolen away. Passive farm on the map that the Valks just haven't been able to grab.
Yeah,
3 levels in soul.
You would love to help Aquarius here, right? And they've continuously tried. But after the second blue buff went down, I'm telling my team, hey, we're looking at the purple buff on the opposite of the map, or we're looking at the red. We're doing something other than fighting into this because we have no chance to fight into this. We just saw Benny Q has the best team fight ultimate that their squad has, both just outright damage. And the Kraken just tickled Neil because that's not who he probably wanted to ult, but he was stuck in the River's Rebuke and had to get it down before he died. So there's just not enough value. Yeah, there's no way. In no world does Aquarius ever win this boxing match anymore. This mitigation style build takes a while to get online. The Soul Eater needs some stacks. It's just not a fun matchup, and you don't get your blue buff either, so you can't trade as many auto attacks as you would like, or your abilities rather. So yeah, if I'm the Valks, I'm giving up on that blue buff 3 blue buffs ago, and I'm trying to put some aggression towards the left, but they haven't learned their lesson, and they're going to try to kill Nika here.
I actually am not certain that this works out for the Valks.
I don't think it does at all.
You've sent 4 members to kill Nika. All right, it does work out. But you send everything, and Nika used Gamma's ultimate, Benny Q's ultimate, 4 members of the Valkyries to solo lane. And you know Nika rolling his eyes a bit. You know, like, you have to send everyone except for Wowie to deal with me right now. He's 2 levels ahead. But look, I can't roll my eyes at that. The Valkyries have to make those plays to get kills on the map right now.
Of course.
And they're able to do so.
Right.
And shrinking up that 3-level lead and that gold gap is what the Valkyries' aim was, and they were able to do that.
Yeah, my issue was not that I didn't think they could kill the RDO because there was no beads and the stun would definitely work out. I just was worried about the farm elsewhere. I don't think that's going to close too much of the gold gap. However, that was a 3-0 RDO, and Nika's gold bounty got claimed by Kirmi. So now the Osiris gets a little boon in gold, and that's going to help out as Cubo is underneath this tower and could be in some trouble here. Uses both dashes, Lord of the Afterlife off the mark.
It's Dardez, but what else is there? Beads up from Dardez. Oh, the River's Rebuke from Neil may have just saved his mid laner's life and condemned the life of Kirmi. Aquarius, though, rotates out of solo, picks up 1 kill. Tusky delayed out the rest of the fight from the Oni Warriors. Kivo Fred is already gone. A Sanctified Field from Vote, a bit shy from really finding massive impact. Aquarius looking for Dardez in the back, but maybe has put himself in an awkward spot now. The slows and the roots from Nika forced a Mystic Rush and the Kraken from Benny Q and Aquarius respectively. So tier 1 tower plus a jungle trade, the Oni Warriors okay with that.
And that was all off the back of the Trebuchet. They just sent it down mid lane and saw what they could get from it. It looks like a Pyromancer. Might be a decent consolation prize. I mean, not even consolation. They got the tower. They maybe didn't get the kills they were looking for because of some decent walls by Gamma, the Kraken, and the Mystic Rush from Aqua. And they get the Pyromancer as well. So just climbing that gold lead a little bit higher. Vote doesn't even come to help. He goes back to left lane to continue pushing and continue trying to get ahead in this lane. The Oleron level 13, a pretty decent ult there. And they will continue because no presence has been put onto this Oleron. The relics are going to be so hard to force. He's going to have beads for the rest of the game. That was the first ult we've seen out of Vote. And also the first ult we've seen out of Wowie, but making the use of it for sure.
Man, now purple buff gets taken away. Wowie is about 1.5 levels behind Vote, was 2 levels behind a second ago. Still 2-level lead for Nika in solo. Could be an opportunity to get a kill onto Vote here. Good knock-up, forces the stun, and Wowie snags a kill. Kirmi in range, though, to delay the reinitiation from the Oni Warriors, and a stun connects. Kirmi does good damage numbers right now, and that is a clean play, a clean pick from the Valhalla Valkyries, and gives Wowie some help. The Gold Fury now the objective.
Yeah, this is definitely the option here, and it doesn't look like the Oni Warriors are in a position to try and defend. I mean, I was talking about how unkillable Vote was, but when that ultimate is down, you have a very killable character, as we just saw. Vote used the beat as best he could, some great body blocks by Gamma, and then Wowie holding onto that ultimate until the last minute just to make sure that that kill goes down, which then opened up the Gold Fury. So now, still a 2,000 gold lead in favor of the Warriors. You know, I was getting excited for a second, then I remembered this was sort of how Game 1 went, where Oni Warriors were up for a while. The Valks got a solid answer back, got some kills on a Wowie, and they really didn't do anything with it. So now the question is, what are the Valks going to do to try and continue this? Helping out Aquarius was the name of the game early on. They couldn't help him too much. He fell once and then lost the blue buff after the fact many times over. Still 2 levels behind in this lane, but at least has the Oni Hunter's Garb and the Soul Eater, so can trade effectively versus Nika. The RDO isn't going to be able to bully him as easily. So I'm just worried about what the Valk's going to try to do next. Do they look for the Pyromancer when it spawns in? Do they try and get some picks elsewhere? Vote doesn't have beads for another 80 seconds or so that could be a good target if they can get Kirmi and Wowie over to that Oleron.
Yep. See if we can keep pressure up on the left side of the map, because that's where a lot of the scaling is going to be for the Oni Warriors as this game goes on. These next few minutes, in my opinion, really change how the remainder of the game looks. Because again, if the Oni Warriors can invade all of these buffs, keep pulling farm away, simply rebuild that gold lead with no pressure from the Valks, then you're maybe looking at a repeat of Game 1. But if the Valks can step up, defend some of those buffs, keep things equal, you're looking at a different game.
So Nika is 1,400 gold ahead.
Right.
That's essentially the gold lead. So everyone else should just be give or take about even, given the circumstance. I mean, the net worth is right there for you. So that shows exactly where...
That's too much math.
Yeah, that shows exactly where most of the gold is sitting, as Aquarius already used that overhead kick. Is going to Mystic Rush in place because he's got some backup from Kirmi.
Yeah, Nika backing away from the tier 1 tower. Will go down as Dardez hits the last auto attack. Hugo Fred eats the Lord of the Afterlife. Drops a retribution though, and the beats. Dardes kills off Kirmi in the back, but BennyQ does the same to Cuvo Fred. But now Nika can really be the one to turn the tides of this fight. A 2-for-1 trade plus a tier 1 tower. Oni Warriors coming out ahead.
Yeah, I was looking for the supports, then I realized they're just back in duo lane, having a traditional duo lane. It's just Neil and Gamma are sitting in duo, not letting their ADCs be alone together. The relics are all available and the ults, so it doesn't look like there was any action being flying. It was just all in the right lane. That was a max range stinger by Dardes, able to clean that one up, and then BennyQ enters back with the Kraken, so that there isn't anything lost there. The tower did go down, so it's still a little bit of gold in favor for the Oni Warriors at the end of that one. 2,500 gold total, and like we mentioned, most of that off the back of this RDO.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Trelly. With all that gold lead sitting on Nika, and the XP now equalized everywhere else across the map. So okay, because this is the point in the game where now the Valkyries need to be proactive, right? They need to realize that they've equalized the leads everywhere else, and just try to fight away from Nika. Like, if you can keep this RDO out of the fight and you can be proactive elsewhere, the Valkyries in theory should be even or ahead in some of these areas. I mean, BennyQ's 1 level ahead of Dardes, well underway into that Poseidon build. Soul Reaver should help. So this is where I think Valkyries fans want to see them defend these buffs, get more proactive. The Oni Warriors not the style of team to let off the gas. They're going to send 3 members to the purple buff. Gamma's close by, and purple buff goes down, and WoWie's just got to watch.
I got to highlight WoWie's play. Being 1-0 in a situation like this is not easy, and the fact that he's not pushing up is smart, because if that's me, I'm getting upset that we're behind and I'm going that wave every time, or at least trying to defend my purple buff, but he's smart to know there's no way he can step up to 3 no matter what. So sitting at that tower, sitting on a trap and saying, like, I'm not going to give you my life, I'm relatively even, I'm not going to let that go through.
Smart from the Oni Warriors to group up around the objective that's close to their biggest lead, and that's Nika. And so Pyromancer goes to the Oni Warriors. An attempted steal from Aquarius, but always going to be difficult to out-confirm the Oni Warriors. They're as far ahead as they are. 5-1 and 2 on the RDO. 100% kill participation.
Cuvo.
And Cuvo Fred is close by. You're going to need some help to burn down Aquarius, and Nemesis has the ability to do so. And look at the difference in damage that rolls through once that retribution gets dropped. Aquarius plenty tanky enough, sustaining, but ends up dying off nonetheless. That gives you a real good zoom in, I think, Trelly, on how hard it is to kill a Robin with this build, but why you may pick something like a Nemesis into it.
Yeah, I think that if there was any anti-heal, he would have died a lot faster. The Soul Eater and just the ability spam definitely was helping out, keeping his HP bar up, and it doesn't look like Cuvo is going to prioritize any anti-heal because Dardes already have the Brawlers, so if there was a little bit more, I think that would have went down a little bit faster, even with the fact that Aqua has a few bit of mitigations. The full style build is not online just yet. Aqua definitely can bleed and has been shown to time and time again, 3 times total. The gold lead just keeps climbing though, and it looks like 3 levels.
Yeah, we're right. It's the same thing, Trelly.
Yes, it is.
So the game is equalized, the game is stabilized, but the Warriors are just more proactive at invading camps, at pulling objectives. You know, again, at the highest level, I am out at my depth. You know, I don't know what the Valkyries are calling for in the player booth there. Like maybe you don't necessarily want to force big objective fights, but Warriors have just given themselves every opportunity to expand on these leads. And now chase down Kirmi, who's fallen 1 level behind Cuvo Fred and had to use the beads and will end up going down. Nika is on an absolute warpath in game 2, 7 kills on the RDO. Could be another, at least an assist over the horizon, as Dardes is on a killing spree. BennyQ is going to get trapped in the River's Rebuke, and I mean, it's just brutal. 1 by 1, the Oni Warriors are going to chase down the Valhalla Valkyries. BennyQ does not have Kraken, and the tower just swinging away onto Neomon. Cuvo Fred adds another.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the side laners, they're not looking towards the middle of the map in the slightest. They're trying to get as much farm as they can. Unfortunately for Aqua, the rest of the Oni Warriors have to come near you to get that Fire Giant, so there's no more free farm for you. Maybe a steal opportunity in the future. He has the Mystic Rush available. You're not worth anything. He has to walk up. He's level 15. This is the only thing he could do that's useful on the map at the moment.
Yeah,
It's
give
not
it
going to.
give it a chance. Delay the game out. Won't try. 20 minutes. Oni Warriors get the Fire Giant, and a game that was stabilized just 4 short minutes ago now swings back to the Oni Warriors, and they've got Fire Giant and 4 towers on the map to build up some extra gold with. 4 levels ahead is Nika over Aquarius. The Robin getting to that point, still working on that damage mitigation build, but you can only mitigate so much damage, Trelly.
That's true.
And the Oni Warriors have some damage to spare, I think, with the game state here. Valks again in a position where delaying the game for another 20 minutes is maybe their best chance.
Yeah, and that's why I thought going for that Fire Giant steal is, you know, the only play that Aqua had. And saving his life is one thing. Maybe saying, you know, maybe we're going to try and go for a defense underneath these Phoenixes. Maybe I've got more time to farm up if they push down left, but it's just so hard to be useful as a solo laner this far down XP-wise. Even if you've built plenty tanky, the Fizz procs aren't quite there. You're getting hit by so much protection shred coming from Cuvo and Dardes. It's just so hard to exist as a solo laner that far behind. So I was thinking, you know, steal the Fire Giant, delay the game. Obviously, it's not as easy as just steal the Fire Giant, but seems like the best opportunity. Either way, the Oni Warriors are going to get that tier 2 tower in left. Looks like they're just going to go for the tier 2 in mid as well. Not going for the Phoenixes just yet. They've got plenty of time. I mean, 2 minutes and 30 seconds on that Fire Giant buff. They can back, upgrade some items, get some upgraded starters, as it looks like Cuvo, Dardes, and Vote have all ticked over to level 20 in the meantime. We saw Nika tick over a while ago, but he already upgraded to that Gem of Focus.
You know, Trelly, let me be clear by this. Nika has been playing very good Smite here recently, but I think we've been long overdue for like a good old-fashioned Nika carry game. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
Like so often for the Oni Warriors, Nika, regardless of pick, just feels like takes a game over. Every so often that happens.
Very
During
true.
the SPL qualifier tournament at the beginning of the year that happened during phase 1. Nika's been playing very good Smite. But I do think we've been overdue for like the Nika game for this Oni Warriors team. And I think we're getting it here in game 2 up against the Valks. A 7-1-4 game, 100% kill participation on the RDO. And I mean, when you look at the build, right, Conduit Gem, great, Warlock Staff, and then Stone of Binding. Those first 3 items just gave Nika so much pressure on the map, and will continue to. Now gets a Spirit Robe. And I like the way Nika's itemized here and given himself a chance to scrap a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure, you know, one of the premier ranked grinders in the league. You know, Nika's always in the queues. He's probably seen how many of these Ravens lined up against him with this full style of mitigations build, and he figured out, wait a second, you do 0 damage.
Right.
And if we just take your blue buff, I can bully the heck out of you, and they've continued to do so. Aqua still only level 17, has not been able to find too much farm since then. It looks like 50 seconds on this Fire Giant, and despite the fact that we are well over a 10,000 gold lead at 24 minutes, the Oni Warriors will not dip a toe into the Phoenix range. They're playing this as smart as possible.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I don't think they have to. They certainly could go for a play underneath the Phoenix, but given the amount of lockdown the Valks have, they still do have some great burst abilities with the Kraken, for example, and the Bumbus Hammer was finished up, so Benny Q's going to have some decent damage.
Yep.
They have a lot of CC with Gamma and Wowie, especially underneath the Phoenix. Tusky is essentially hitting everyone guaranteed. If you're grouped up that much, you're getting a 5-man stun for sure. So putting some respect on that is definitely smart, but it looks like the Valks are going to try and set up any sort of an ambush here. Neilma could be walking into this, but he sees this as well.
I mean, Neilma is just hanging out on his own side of the jungle. Riptide actually goes the wrong direction. Maybe gets blocked out by the walls from Gamma. And a proactive play by the Valkyries now puts Neilma back in the fountain for 45 seconds. This is the same thing as game 1.
Yep.
This is maybe now your best chance at setting up for a Fire Giant. You wish it was up on the map right now if you're the Valkyrie. So a relatively low impact death if you're Neilma. You wish that was up, but it's not. So the Valkyries have found a pick.
Right.
But that's about it.
Yeah, they did this last time, as you said. Well, they didn't do this specifically. They just got a good pick on Anika, and then they went for the Fire Giant. So what put
Maybe
a wrench in that plan last time was Cuvo Fred wrapping around. So I've got my eyes on the Nemesis. And where is he? He's behind the Valks. And I assume he's going to walk in right behind, as he did last time, and tear this fight open. Let's see if the Valks remember. It doesn't look like he cares, actually. He wants that Phoenix instead.
I wonder if they have to channel these backs. Fire Giant's up in 5 seconds. Neomaz respawned. And the window of a 4v5 is minuscule. Cubo Fred is going to be able to, just take this on his own. Mid lane Phoenix gone. What's happening elsewhere? Not much for the Valhalla Valkyries. The Oni Warriors simply disengaging from the fight. A double stun from Nika and damage flying through from Dardez. Means Gamma's got to drop the ultimate, cracking a bit off the mark, and a River's Rebuke from Neoma forces the Mystic Rush out of Aquarius. And how about that Sanctified Field? That's big from Vode. And the kills will drop. The Oni Warriors rolling. Dardez ends this game on a rampage, and an emphatic team fight win for the Oni Warriors. Secures the 2-0.
And I got to give some more credit to Dardez because he was the one who stopped that teleport. Not like it ended up being useful because Aqua didn't make it to the fight. The Phoenix went down, and they still won after the fact. But he was able to stinger Aquarius, say, you're not going to teleport in. They still fought 5v4. Cubo made it all the way over there for the end of the fight, but massive plays and a triple kill for the mid laner to close this one out 2-0.
Multi-kills abound for the Oni Warriors in game number 2, an 8-1-8 game from Nika on the RDO. 100% kill participation for the Oni Warriors solo laner. Look, Troy, there's only so much we can say after this set that is different from what we said about the Valkyrie set earlier on this weekend, where it just felt like passively the objectives and the gold lead got away from them a little bit. Again, if you're latching on to small things, it's that in both games the Valkyries made plays that at least slowed down the bleeding, stabilized the game a bit. The next step is not getting there in the first place, but also if you're going to be there and you're going to stabilize the game, really stabilize it moving forward. So it's a fantastic set from the Oni Warriors. And still some growing pains continue for the Valks.
Yeah, I would say definitely focus on the moments where they were getting completely rolled. They were down in gold, but they still were able to find picks and find a little bit of answer back here and there. And then, it's one thing to stop the bleeding, but maybe don't get cut in the first place. That's another way to look, so we'll phrase it that way.
Yeah, not the weekend that the Valkyries will like to remember moving forward. Back to the drawing board they go. And the Oni Warriors, their fans, will be plenty happy with what they saw in this set. Send it back to the desk, though, to break this one down.
And thank you so much, Dave and Charlie. So unfortunately for the Valkyries, they're not able to remove the 0 off of their column just yet, but fortunate for Oni Warriors and the Oni Warriors fans is they're able to find themselves a win in 2-0 fashion up against the Valkyries. And very similar pacing to last game, Mifflin, where Oni Warriors get an early lead, and then the Valkyries are able to slow them down yet again at more plays. And Valkyries are finding nice picks every so often, but it's just not enough. The Oni Warriors, Nika specifically, really stepping up in the RDO of this game. It's not often you see a solo laner have 7 or 8 kills in a game, especially when it's an RDO solo too.
J-Mac, I'll break down this game.
Okay.
But I want to ask you a question first.
Sure.
Do you think I'm the meanest caster?
Like, main caster, it's still like doing this like every single week kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So like if we're like excluding Hindu Man on
you think
this
Hindu's
list,
meaner than me?
I think he definitely can be.
All right. Because, like, all you guys are like, man, the Valkyries, like, finding chances to fight back. They, like, slowed them down. My analysis of that game is, like, the Valks got owned, dude. Like, they got kind of rolled. Like, that was an early game composition. You're expecting the Valks to be pretty dominant in that portion of the game, right? I mean, it's a Raven, Osiris, Poseidon, Cabrakan game. That is a incredibly strong mid 3v3. That is a draft that you take almost exclusively for pressure. And they didn't get it, like, at all. And I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, at least they got a couple of picks in the late game, man. I mean, like, sure, I guess. We are scraping the barrel for compliments, man.
I mean, to be fair, it did take, 4 people almost every single time they wanted to find a pick, and that was always against either Nika or Neil Moss. And when you have to spend 4 people and 2 to 3 ultimates, it does kind of give you an idea of the state of the game at that point. The Valkyries slow things down, but you're not going to be able to slow down the Oni Warriors too much when they've got a composition rolling like this one. Nika finishing with a 12.0 KDA on an RDO solo is not a state that you want to be in, is any team. It's not a state that any player wants to have to go against. It's a nigh unkillable solo laner.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors, they got to the portion of the game where they win, which was anywhere towards the mid to late game. That draft from the Valkyries, I don't think, could have hung with what the Warriors had drafted for themselves. So even in saying the Valkyries, like, slowed down the game, in of itself also a bad thing because they needed that game to be real quick if they wanted it to win. The Oni Warriors, they came with a solid strategy and they played very well. They executed on it perfectly, except for maybe a couple of stumbles. But even then, in the stumbles, it really wasn't ever in question.
8-1-8 for Nika, 6-0-8 for Dardes, going undying, and that's something that Charlie talks about all the time. I always echo that with him. Is whenever the carries of the team are going undying in a game, if you cannot get to the back line to deal with these mid laners, you cannot get to the back line to deal with these Hunter players or anybody in general, it's never a good look in this one. Dardes able to go undying, putting out top damage on this AMC, fighting immense pressure early on, even up against Poseidon. So good look out of the Oni Warriors. And talking about Dardes, we've actually got him standing by for our post-game interview, I should say. First off, congrats on the win here up against the Valhalla Valkyries. I mean, your team's having a couple of speed bumps along the way. You were able to find a win over against the Titans previously, and then you had a stumble against the Bulls. I mean, what's kind of going on, behind the scenes with the Oni Warriors, trying to get you guys, rallied up for each of your sets?
I just feel like the set against Bolts, we had it was a crazy draft diff. So we worked on that this week in scrims, and we just have to make sure that we always have good draft for us. Like we don't pay attention to the enemy team draft, just pay attention to our draft. If that makes sense, then that's good.
Yeah, and kind of echoing onto that one, what would you say for the Oni Warriors is kind of that strongest point for you guys? Is it the team fighting phase that's the best for you guys? Is it that early game kind of pressure? I mean, where for the Oni Warriors do you feel that your strength really lies?
I think our strength is definitely a team fight stage. Because the most games we lose is like when we get picked early game and they snowball and we literally cannot play the game. But every game we get to team fights, 5v5, we always have like a good showing. And
yeah, you guys are able to get to that phase maybe a little bit quicker in this set, and you guys look good doing it. Congrats on your win. I'll get you back to the team to celebrate. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
So Team 5 phase, and that's a lot of, I think a lot of the SPL teams out there will say that, the team fight is where they feel that they're the strongest out there. Other teams might say, and when we talked with Genetics last week, talking about the Titans, he felt that the Titans always seem to be a team that's really strong when it comes to the drafting phase of the game, and then maybe the play on field can still echo similarities. But some confidence out of Dardes, and talking to you about the stumbles that he had up against the Olympus Bolts with his team, able to rally that back and find a win up against the Valkyries today.
And they cleaned up their draft phase. Every draft I looked at, I was like, oh, okay, there's like clear win conditions here. There are clear goals that this team is trying to reach in order to facilitate getting into the Siege or getting in towards the Fire Giant. So if that was the emphasis that Chuckles, the coach, had, or the team as a whole had, clearly some massive strides. The Oni Warriors looking real good.
Well, if this was any other day of SPL, that would have been it with our 2 sets, but we still got one more with the Jade Dragons and Solar Scarabs to round out our day. One final look at the standings currently. The Oni Warriors, with their win, bump themselves up into that 5th seed. The Valhalla Valkyries still unable to find their first win. And now it's the Jade Dragons and the Solar Scarabs, 2-2 and 1-4 respectively for those. Jade Dragons have a chance to bump themselves up a little bit further in standings, and the Solar Scarabs have a chance to play spoiler against this team.
Yeah, if the Dragons win us, so they're like kind of technically tied for like 3rd place, that big jumble up of 3 and 2 at the center of the league. So I'm sure they'd love to join everybody else there. The Solar Scarabs trying their best to play spoiler, and we've seen plenty of spoiler played this week.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a lot of spoiler with the Solar Scarabs just in general, especially up against the Jade Dragons. Should be a fun matchup. That one's going to be coming up right after this break.